What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR. Sitting all the way across the city from me this week and every week, he's the king of all VR kings. He's a soap king himself. I find your lack of faith disturbing. It's Jeremy King.
Wow, Brian, it's like such a nice hue and back of you when you said that too. Blue though, not red. And he's got the red tie all the way across in his friggin' ivory tower. Is that what it's called? Or dark tower? I don't know what you'd call it, but at the very tippy top where Brian likes to be is Brian Parole and Tornado.
I do like to be on top. And every week on Why We Love PlayStation VR, we dip into the PSVR archive. We pull out a game at random. But you know what? Let's throw all that away this week because sometimes we need to break format and just because we're excited about a new game. And I don't feel like it's fair. Dave gets to play, AJ gets to play, I get to play it, and then with Jeremy, I'm like, hey, let's play a shitty game this week while everyone else is playing something brand new and fun.
Right.
So we're gonna.
I'm like the third child that gets all the shit broken toys after 20 years of
Yeah, you're like Harry Potter in the little room under the stairs. What game did we decide to play?
Seriously. Anyways, what we're going
this week?
We did. I mean, is it considered Star Wars Vader Immortal or just Vader Immortal Episode 1, 2, and 3?
Well, technically, it's called Vader Immortal, a Star Wars VR series by ILM X Lab, which is Lucasfilm's mixed reality and virtual reality studio that was formed in 2015. Sirens on my end. Released August 25th, 2020 for $29.99. Jeremy, what kind of game is Vader Immortal, a Star Wars VR series?
Christ. It's action adventure, sword fighting with some mild abilities. It's an adventure game.
Okay. Yeah, I would actually say it's like half VR experience, half arcade game. But I think it's very important, before we begin this, for people to understand where you're coming from. Are you a Star Wars fan?
Oh, of course. I was born in 78, so I was 2 years after the first flick. But, I mean, I grew up with Star Wars, the figures, the toys. I always wanted to be Han Solo, and so I've seen all the movies many times over. And, I mean, I don't have, tattoos with Star Wars, and I don't watch the animated shows and stuff like that. So the expanded universe.
I've heard the Clone Wars is really good.
I heard that too, and I actually added it to my queue because people keep saying it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try that, but that will be my first. Well, actually, Mandalorian I watched, but yeah, I'm a Star Wars guy.
And with that out of the way, let's talk about the half of Vader Immortal that is basically a Star Wars movie, that is a Star Wars experience. It downloads as 3 separate tiles on your PlayStation 4, right? And I think we should start there, right?
Yeah.
Right. It originally came out on Oculus over time, and so that makes sense there. It comes out one at a time, and then eventually you're like, sweet. Over the course of the last few months, I've played each of these.
Yeah.
And I've experienced it in the way they wanted me to. But I figured when it got brought over to PlayStation, with the inability to buy them separately, you would expect one download with everything included, so you can go from episode to episode to episode more seamlessly, and then go from dojo to dojo to dojo more seamlessly. I mean, did you feel like it was kind of disruptive to...
Oh my God, yeah. A little bit. It was kind of like going to the theater to see a new Star Wars theater and having there be commercials during it. It was like, what the fuck? It made no sense. I totally agree that how they separated, segmented, and it also played out like a lot of times like your favorite cliffhanger to a show where it would end and then you'd have to wait a certain amount of time for the next episode. And then when that episode started, they'd start out at the tail end of where that one ended, right. But things are slightly different. And you're like, wait a minute. So I noticed like a graphical jump at certain points with details, especially at the end of episode 1 and then the beginning of episode 2. When you're standing in the same room, It's like, wow, they certainly modified this room in the 3 minutes since I finished the last episode.
Right.
So continuity, is that the word?
Maybe continuity. It sounds like they had they were probably trying to race to a deadline, and then they had a little more time to start polish things up at the beginning of the next one.
Yep.
So what about the story itself? I mean, as somebody who really hasn't been a fan of the most recent movies, where does this fit in? How did you enjoy it? Did you like this more or less than those?
So the story took a backseat to me because I was really into seeing a stormtrooper like in front of me, and Vader, who is way bigger in person, so to speak. He's a big dude. He's got to be like 320 pounds and like fucking 7 feet. I don't know. He's big. He's a bulky dude.
Right, and you're about
So
4'7", so like that's the con.
yeah, I know, right? I
Yeah,
was like Frodo next to Gandalf.
yeah, worlds collide, man. Fucking
Wicked.
Lord
Yeah,
of the Rings x Star Wars.
right. But I gotta say
There's
that
gonna be someone in the comments that's like, Brian, it's Lord of the Rings cross Star Wars. I know, I know.
yeah,
Seriously,
right.
get it out of your system. Just leave the fucking comment.
It's like a Nipponichi game. They got to do one of those cross things,
Yeah, always.
Um, but yeah, so the story seems it was more centered on the newer Star Wars. So, like, obviously, movie wise, it was episode 4, 5, and 6 that came out in the originals.
Right.
And then in the, 2000s, early 2000s, it was episode 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, 7, 8, and 9 later.
Right.
And so this story or this segment definitely seems like it plays off of episode 1, 2, and 3 because, Vader or Anakin
And of course,
is,
no spoilers. So I don't, we can give the framework with the setting, but
yes.
we won't spoil anything.
Okay, no spoilers, but
Yeah.
like what he's trying to do has to do more of what took place in those first 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give it away, but it humanizes Vader to a point that you don't want to see. You know what I mean? Like I know a lot of people with episode 3, the ending where Vader's like, "No, Padme," because she died of a broken heart. I mean, it's just garbage. But so this more plays off of that in my mind in that segment of the Star Wars lore than say the original 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So story wise, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I didn't want to seriously dig it apart for, how can this happen? Like that kind of crap. At least it didn't introduce midichlorians again and all that shit. But anyways, story wise, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm neutral with it. I'm a 5.
Okay.
I didn't love it, didn't hate it.
All right. And then, I mean, obviously, the thing that everybody is kind of up in arms about right now, the reason why, we could have very easily waited and looked at this game again in like a couple months when they hopefully patch it up a little bit. The big turnoff for a lot of people was the locomotion system, where it was teleportation and click turning only.
Yeah.
What was what was your feeling on that?
They might as well just had me automatically start moving and following characters as they progressed because you only could kind of follow behind them and you only could jump ahead and teleport a certain length of time and you couldn't go further than them usually. It was like where they were or, right behind them in a bit.
Right.
And there were predetermined spots that you could teleport to where you knew, oh, look, I can't go past this and it's next to a crate. So there must be enemies that are going to come out right here. It's very predictable. It almost spoiled the story for you, this teleportation and how it worked.
Yeah.
So I wasn't the biggest fan. The click churning I could deal with at this point. We've been dealing with it for a majority of games and whatever. I was fine with it. But the whole teleportation really took away, in my opinion, the experience. It was very awkward.
I think most people are with you. Even people who absolutely love this game, I think they're right there with us. The teleportation, and especially because it's not just doom 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 doom. It's this blink, and it goes to like a black screen for like a half a second, and boom, comes back up, and it's just this. Oh, and it's just like, come on, let's do this.
Right.
Whereas like if I was just holding a move button and slowly walking, behind or next to the person I was accompanying, it would have been a totally different story. It would have been like, oh, I'm here and I'm hanging out with this person and they're talking and we're having a conversation and we're just walking from room to room. Instead, I'm like, like a dog on a leash, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just waiting for you to be able to teleport again. Click and click and click.
It does VR stuff pretty well, like the interactions. When you start off and you're on the ship and you can kind of walk around and it's telling you flip these switches and pull this lever, but then if you go in the back there's like a helmet you can pick up and put on your head and there's like different like little things that you can find, but I feel like that wasn't prevalent throughout the course of the game. I was like they started off on a high note and being like, oh, we're gonna make this very very VR and there's gonna be lots of things to interact with, pick things up, throw them, do the whole thing, and then that sort of like fizzled out like pretty quickly.
Wicked. Oh yeah, pretty much after they let you see it and do it, then it's gone. You know, there was no more interacting. Like I thought at that point, I'm like, oh, there's gonna be collectibles that I'll get to see on my ship as I
Mm-hmm.
do these and acquire these items. I'll get to see my adventures, you know, in on display. But
Yeah.
no, that was gone. I mean, shit. You did not get to access that ship again until no spoilers. But maybe you do, maybe you don't get to access that ship again. But
No
yeah, I
spoilers.
agree with you. There was just a lot of things that they set up with interacting, scanning your ship, you know, and twisting dials and all that stuff. It
Yeah.
was like, wow, this is going to be pretty neat. And then poof, like Kaiser Sose, gone, you know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But there are highlights. There are highlights. We don't want to say it started off with a bang and then boom, fizzled out, because
No.
you don't actually get to fight anyone right away. It's a lot of just sort of watching people talk to you, because your character doesn't talk. So
Yeah.
it's again, you don't feel engaged in a lot of these conversations because people are just talking to you. They do get right
Mhm.
up in your face though, which is pretty cool. I thought
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
invade your personal space, and I was like, this is cool, man. Not a lot of games take advantage of that.
Yeah.
As you progress through the different chapters, you do get to do cooler and cooler things, right?
Mhm.
You get a lightsaber uh,
Yeah.
when you finally get force powers.
More force power.
Force power. No, that's an excellent point. This is
Yeah.
the one thing you can do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You get a force power.
yeah. What do you think about all the action scenes that allowed you to kind of experiment with this stuff?
You know, they were okay. They weren't like challenging like
Hmm.
whatsoever. They were more again like an experience. It was almost like they geared this so even though you can't utilize a headset unless you're 12, they almost seem like they geared this from 6 to 96. You know, it's like the
Okay,
old
yeah.
was it, you know, so anybody could do it. It's like Bing Crosby. Was it the Bing Crosby Christmas song? Um, where he's like from 2 to 92 or something like that,
I don't know.
and to celebrate Christmas. And I used to think, well, what about people who are older than that? You know, don't they get to celebrate? Or are they just dead? But anyways, it was like that. They just made it so anybody in this huge spectrum of ages could succeed in any battle. You know,
Yeah.
so I can't say it was challenging whatsoever.
No, I mean
But
you can't even die. I don't think I've never died.
oh yeah.
Overall thoughts on this part of it?
So in the combat, I thought it was really neat to
Hmm.
grab a lightsaber, to fire it up, because then later on when you acquire a different type of a saber, it's got a different sound. It's very like you know, Ben Solo or Kylo Ren, if you will. That sound where it was sounded like it was a little bit tuned a little bit aggressively. You know, you could hear the saber different
Yeah.
than the other ones. But with the combat, I found that I wanted to be quicker than the combat could let me be.
Mm.
You know, like it limited. It's like it had a governor on it where you couldn't just force this and do that and block. It's like you needed to. Then you could throw. Well, then you could do it. Then you could throw your sword. You know, like that kind of shit. It just felt limiting, and they gave you a lot of warning signs before they were to attack you and where they would attack you.
Right.
They're like, "I'm gonna swing. Where am I? Where am I gonna swing from?"
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like block, you
Yeah.
know. So there was a lot of that where, but it was fine, I guess, during it because it was just so awesome to kind of be in the Star Wars universe, like literally in it.
Yeah.
I tell you, this got me so pumped for. Was it Rogue Squadron, the newer one? Is that what they're calling it? I don't know what they're calling it.
Oh, the upcoming
Forgot.
squadrons. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
for
Because
sure.
those were always great on the flat screens way back in the day. So in VR, it's gonna be fucking rad as fuck.
Yeah, I agree with you about the lightsabers. I've sort of gone back and forth, especially even since Gamescast. I was like, I don't really like the lightsabers because the orientation in your hand is like about 5 degrees off from where it should be. It's like
Oh, wicked weird.
it's sort of just
Yeah.
off. And then on
Some
top
the
of that,
wrists.
yeah, oh, the wrists are
So
all
weird.
sorts of messed up. I don't
You're
understand that
like,
at all.
I don't either.
Yeah.
He's got issues, hand problems. No wonder why he never picked up a sword before.
But I will say that the lightsabers themselves,
Hmm.
something that like Beat Saber doesn't do is that, I mean, obviously the audio is amazing, right? It's the classic vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
But also when you do that, the move controller like vibrates. Like when you get a good swing, it vibrates just from the swing, and I was like, that's cool. And that's something I sort of didn't even notice during my first playthrough. That made it feel like, oh, there is something that's very powerful in my hand right now. Boom.
Right.
That's cool. I like that very much. And then when you retract the saber itself, there's like this kind of crackling and and smoke that comes out of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, visually very, very, very convincing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the combat training dojos.
Mm-hmm.
There's one per episode.
Yes.
And they're pretty different. And I feel like this is where I've spent so much time in these already that I feel like, yes, the experience, the story, that was great. It was fun to go through and I had a good time with it. Mm-hmm. But this is what's selling me on the game. Like I had
really?
so much. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like you don't agree. So why don't you tell me about your experience in the combat dojos?
Okay. So I can't. Well, I can. I'm gonna lay some fault on the game and then on my own preferences.
Okay.
So with preferences for myself personally, I get bored with time trial type of things unless there's a leaderboard system and I'm competing with my friends. That will encourage me to go further at times, But this didn't really have that, I'm not huge on collecting things. I don't care if my lightsaber is this color or that color, if the gloves are different. I wanted to, if it gave me a reason to play it, like if I complete 5 of these dojos, I'm going to gain this force ability that I can then use in the game too. Mm-hmm. Shit, I'd be all over that, like I would keep going because I would want to acquire this to play in the game. But it didn't have that, it was just more time trials, just more things to do. And but that's my preference of why I don't keep going. The things I can blame on the game is that I found hit detection to be like pretty inaccurate. So when those things were in front of you, that would shoot at you. And so, I'd be like, all right, I'm hitting you. Why don't you? There, it broke. You know what I mean? Like I would, the hit detection, this game should have taken some lessons from Beat Saber, because those sabers in Star Wars, I thought would have been incredible. Just how accurate it is in Beat Saber and how kind of inaccurate it is in Vader Immortal. I just think that inaccuracy and that I had floating hand issues a couple times, and it's not easy to just back out of this and then go back in or restart it. It's like you got to shut down everything, because sometimes this game would glitch out to the point where even my saber would fling out of my hands when I wasn't throwing it. It was really awkward. I'd have a lot of glitches to it, and
those small droids that you start off with, that show up right in front of you. I did find myself like waggling to make, I got to get it right. It was like I think the game definitely wants you to do these like big elaborate swings. But when there's something right in front of you, I'm like, just get it. I just want to zig zig zig, So yeah, and really, I just kind of did whatever I could get away with. Some of the bigger robot droids that have the sabers. The game wants you to like wait and parry and then attack, and I'm just like, if I just keep swinging, I think I'm going to hit him while I'm dealing with something over here. But what I liked about it was that the first dojo is pretty basic. It does get way more complicated as you go on. And I was actually bored for the first probably 15 minutes. I was like, this is fucking boring. I'd heard for so long that the dojos are where it's at in this game, and I was like, I don't agree at all. But the more time I spent with it, I was like, man, I'm getting these commendations, like the 3 stars in every single one, and that all depends on how fast you can do it and where your life bar is at the end of it. And I was like, okay, it's like, and I started being like, oh, I'm going to replay this until I get 3 commendations. And then, as time went on, I was like, wow, this is getting harder and harder and harder. So all I wanted to do was just keep progressing, even if I didn't get a commendation. If I just finished it, I was like, I'm going to keep moving. So, and that was cool. And I really enjoyed the first dojo. And then when I got to the second dojo and had the force powers, and I was able to utilize the traps from afar. I mean, some of those traps are awesome. The big fan that sucks in like those bug characters. Right, just stomping them, and then the electrical barrier that you can. It's like it really adds something. So not only are you attacking things that are up close with your lightsaber, but you're also manipulating these things. You're using the force to grab enemies and toss them into the traps, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, cool, this really mixes it up. And then when you get to the third dojo, it's like I feel like it's like totally different game, because you've got stormtroopers coming at you and they're firing blasters, and you can throw them across the room, grab their blaster and fire with it. Oh my god, Oh, and they give you the ability at that point to take your dual wield lightsabers and throw them at your enemies,
Throw
and
those
boom,
motherfuckers.
get
Yeah.
them. You can catch them on their way back, and
Mhm.
that feels amazing. I did feel like the best strategy on that though is to just do one saber and one force. Like
Oh yeah,
I was dual
I found
wielding,
that
and I
out
was
too.
like, this. I'm not as powerful as I should be right now. I want to be slamming droids into each other
Oof. Yeah.
constantly, right? As I'm throwing my lightsaber. Yeah.
I used to love taking. What I would do is just hold my lightsaber up, grab one, and then throw them towards me, and let them slice and burn.
And you can play them however you want to, which I totally
Yeah.
love. I love that, and and then when you hear a droid powering up and it's going to start firing at you,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, where's that sound coming from? And the 3D audio is good enough where you're like, it's coming from over there, and you get
Mhm.
get your saber up to like deflect the shots. I was like, I felt like I won't call it a workout because I mean I'm sorry, this is no pistol whip or beat saber, but man, it's like it's kind of intense, and I really enjoyed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there were certain things that they did get well, like when there was a lot going on, you could start to feel pretty badass. You can hear that over there. So sometimes it didn't work, but like you try to like grab something with your mind with the force abilities, but you needed to look to get that thing on there before you could interact with them. But yeah, it was pretty neat to hear where they're coming from, and then turn, 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 turn to confront them. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I don't even use the turn buttons
I was just being
in the dojo.
exaggerating with the
And
turn.
and actually, I found that I would some very frequently not have to look at all. I'd be like, I think there's an enemy over there, and I would just put my hand out, and I would and I would feel the vibration in the controller to
Honestly,
know.
I never had luck with that
Uh,
ever.
I pulled the
You know?
I felt the vibration, pulled the trigger, not even sure exactly what I'm pulling, and then throwing him across the arena, and then I just see him fly by and run into, and hit something else. I was like, nice, I nailed that. So
Yeah.
it just depends because sometimes if it's like the small droids, you can do that pretty quickly, but the bigger, if you're throwing like a stormtrooper, it takes an extra second or two to wait until it registers.
Yeah.
And so being very familiar with force powers myself, I find that to be very accurate. I don't fucking know. Yeah. All right, man. I mean, just overall though, I know that there's probably a few glitches we didn't talk about. Did you find anything really distracting?
Yes. There'd be one glitch where sometimes I don't know if I would appear I'd be stuck in a wall or one of the moving characters, but when I would teleport to an area and there was a lot of action like that, oh man, that creature, fucking A. I know it, and I'm forgetting it. Begins with an R. But anyways, so you're fighting it, and there was a lot going on. Then all of a sudden, I'm just like in black, and I could hear stuff going on, and I'm like, "Where am I? What is going on?" And I stuck with it for a few minutes until I was able to kind of like try to get out, and then I was just floating in the air, way away from any kind of platform. So I'm like, "How am I going to get out of this situation?"
Hmm.
And I just kept churning, hitting buttons, and then all of a sudden, it just reoriented me, and I was back to where I needed to be, and I was able to progress. I'd have that issue a lot, and sound. There was something with the sound. Would once in a while I'd be like, "Yeah," do that
Yeah.
little stuck
Very
sound.
strange, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, other than that, those were the two major ones, but nothing like too game breaking or anything like that. Nothing to get me to dislike it.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I had two crashes at two different points.
A rancor. Anyways, go on.
There you go. The game crashed at two different points, but they weren't. It didn't repeat. They weren't. I couldn't get the game to crash again at those points. So I was like, okay, well, this isn't that big of an issue. And then sometimes I'd go into the menu screen. I'd hit options, and the menu screen would be so far away from me, I couldn't even access it. I'd be like,
Really?
I can't walk up there and need to even push the buttons, and like holding options wouldn't recalibrate. And I was like, what? This isn't helping anything. And so, but I actually did find out one of our viewers, Patty, said that if you just hit options again, it brings you back to the game, and then hit options again to bring you back to the menu screen. It always self-corrects. So if anyone is having that problem, hopefully before they patch it, then that is a slight workaround. But yeah, it seemed like there was just a lot of orientation problems. It seemed like very frequently I was just kind of put in the wrong place, and the game didn't know where I was, and so yeah, I was constantly trying to correct those things,
Mhm.
which just kind of made the game feel less polished than it should. For a game that's
Oh,
coming from Lucasfilm and Disney, it's supposed to be this really polished experience. It just felt unpolished.
Like, what was I'm having a brain fart. What was the game that came out months ago that was very medieval, that was VR as fuck, that we used to
Oh, Shadow
say?
Legends.
Shadow Legends. How
Yeah.
many people worked on that?
Well, two main people, and then they outsourced
Yeah.
a lot of work on it. Yeah.
That game right there, LucasArts should contact them
Yeah.
because that was solid all the way around. There was never an issue. And I was a little surprised with, the pedigree of who's backing this title
Right.
to have it go out as such a rough, unpolished type of an experience. I was a little bit surprised at that.
Which I guess probably leads us to our rating.
That's true.
What is our rating scale?
So this, I guess, one, you'd have two lightsabers and every force ability you can think of. Deflecting, it's awesome. You are the most goddamn powerful thing in the world. So you want this game because you're in your element and you love it. Two, it's like, oh, you got one saber. You got a saber, a couple abilities. You're all right. Love it or leave it. You'll be a Jedi. You could be a Sith. You don't give a fuck. You'll take a good discount at a cantina when it's presented. And then three, no sabers. You got a rock and you got a notebook. You don't know what to do with either. So you just don't bother with this title or any kind of Star Wars anything. Fuck it. So, I mean, Brian, two sabers, one saber, or a rock?
Yeah, I guess I got to go with one saber on this. I'm again not a big Star Wars fan. I think I think it's important to know, but I did enjoy the story. I felt like it was really cool to meet some of these new characters and see some of these old characters and sort of just experience Star Wars in a way that I never really experienced it before. A lot of it to me actually felt like Rebel Assault 2 on the PlayStation 1, where it was like full motion video, where where it felt kind of cheesy but sort of good at the same time, because I don't know. There's just something very Star Wars about the feeling I got from it. I mean, not just the things that were presented to me, but the feeling of the overall experience. But the problem I have, I mean, I think anyone out there who's judging this solely on the campaign has missed the real meat here. I've probably spent 4 or 5 hours in the dojo so far, and not quite 2 hours with the story itself.
Yeah.
So I think
I could see that.
So that's huge right there. It's like I found the game in this experience, which is always like kind of the goal. The problem is that we sort of got an inferior port at launch. Like, and I don't care what happened behind the scenes with Oculus and Disney that led us to getting the version of the game that we got. It was divided up into episodes for no reason at all. There was no reason for that. This should have been a cohesive one game that unlocked as you went. Unlocked episode 2 when you finished episode 1, and when you unlock episode 2, you also unlock the first dojo. You get through episode 2. This should have been a progression thing here, where where it just made sense, and the whole thing should have had a platinum trophy. Instead, you just have like these. To be honest, my trophy list is glitched. I know there's not a platinum because I talked to AJ and his trophy list isn't glitched. But I don't know what the trophies are, and most of them are dojo related, but I don't know exactly what I got to do. So I don't know. All I care about is the product they delivered, and I don't care about whatever deals were struck up behind the scenes. You and I, we always go, it's awesome that this game was made by 1 or 2 people or whatever. Whenever we talk about independent games, we say, it's so cool it was made by 1 or 2 people, or it looks like it was made by one person, but we can't rate the game higher just because of that. Just because it was made by one person. It's like, we don't really care what happens behind the scenes. It's an interesting story to tell, but at the end of the day, we care about the game that was delivered, and all of that other stuff is extraneous, right? Yeah. We're paying money for a product, and we have to rate the product as it is, and we can only review the games that ended up in our hands, and then it's our job to tell them if they fucked up. And I gotta say, they kind of fucked up with this, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, but the fact is that even with all the fuck ups, I still really enjoyed it, and I've gone back every day to the dojos, and I was like, well, there's something here, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. and I've got my fingers crossed that they have it in their heart to fix the problems and patch it, and make it the nice polished experience that we've come to expect from a team this big. So it's a 2, and I've heard from both sides. I've heard from people who absolutely love it, and this is a 1. It's the best experience I've ever played, and the combat dojo is amazing. And then we've heard from people who are like, this is complete trash. Don't give these people your money. It's absolutely garbage. Blah blah blah. And I'm somewhere right in the middle, where I'm like, I'm really enjoying this, but it's got some serious issues. So that's my rant. It is a 2, and I'm curious to hear what you're going to say about this.
All right. So visually, I thought it was decent. It's not the best looking VR game I've seen, certainly not the worst. Didn't give me any issues, no nausea. I mean, you barely moved in it. How could it?
Right.
I wish they gave me that thrill of Star Wars space combat in a little sense, in a little way, like, Rush of Blood, right? Isn't that the Dawn?
Yeah.
Why am I a lot of brain farts today?
Until Dawn roller coaster game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
That had such a realistic, I was there feeling, like going down, like, like even now it would still do that. But being on like one of those carriers in Star Wars, or even the beginning when you're in the ship, I didn't get that feeling. I wanted to, and I thought it was neat. I was in a ship and I was like, wow, this is Star Wars shit, and like seeing Vader like right there, and a stormtrooper and other characters. I thought that was really neat, and hearing the saber and seeing it, that was all really good. And it's hard to like take that away and just put a game in place, because price definitely was high because of the title above the tag, Star Wars, $30, and it's pricey for the length of game you get. I know the dojo can make up for the length, because the fact that these titles, these little episodes, they're literally like 30-minute episodes. They're very quick.
30,
you can
30, 40
at the max,
right?
Yeah. I mean, they're not long, and I felt that breaking it up into episodes was to make it feel more valid of the price you were paying, and more episodic and epic in scope, when instead it was pretty lackluster in that sense. I agree with you. I feel that it should have been kind of changed to one cohesive story as you progressed, instead of these pauses in the action, to just have you then exit a game, go to another game, load it all up, select your preferences on comfort and non-comfort, and go. And then now it picks up right where you just left off in the other episode, but you had to just go through all that shit to get there. I thought the story was decent. I get it. I'm not like, I didn't love it, didn't hate it, I thought the voice acting was great.
Yes.
Everybody did. Even the robot, your companion, I don't remember her name.
Zoe.
Her humor, Zoe, she made me laugh. I thought she was pretty funny. Vader did a great, you would almost think it was James Earl Jones. It was very close. So everybody did a great job with the sound and the voice acting and all that stuff.
And the orchestration, the soundtrack was awesome.
Yep, all that was top notch. What I do feel that they so lacked in was just substance in the game. Like, there was a lot of mini experiences, like following, listening, here, deflect, kill things, move on. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. It was very predictable. There was no like, I didn't see that coming, none of that, but I mean, overall, I still was like a little boy in that sense. We're like, hey, it's Star Wars, you know what I mean? Like, I'm here, I made it.
Yeah.
But like, so all that was really, really neat. There was more stuff I wish they did, and more stuff and time I wish they put behind it. More abilities. But maybe, again, let's be hopeful. I don't want to be like, oh, maybe they're going to do this in the future, and in further episodes with more abilities, because you weren't really planning on being a Jedi. Vader kind of made you do that. So, I mean, overall, I had fun. I wasn't big on the dojo stuff. They definitely made that, like Call of Duty, they make their multiplayer be their game. And then it's kind of like, well, wait, what about the single player people that, were fans too? So I feel this game kind of does a disservice to people who are a fan of a story, a meaty, long, lengthy, kind of an episodic adventure that you're in the middle of. They kind of gave you a little adventure. It's like, oh, you got to run to the grocery store and get your mother some milk. Don't forget. It's like a simple little adventure. Where the dojo, you know, you could spend hours and constantly progress and get better and more enemies and different enemies, variations of it. So all that being said, $30 is pretty high, pretty damn high, I think, for this title and what you get, regardless of Star Wars or not. It's expensive.
Yeah.
But if I want to take that out of the equation, did I enjoy the game? Yeah, I thought the sound was great. Presentation looked good. They had some climbing in there that was,
I thought the climbing was good. Yeah, it's
it
like,
worked. Yeah,
especially when the whole time you're clicking around with teleportation. It was a nice break to be like, oh, this is what like full locomotion would kind of be like in
yeah.
this game, and it feels really nice.
But again, they gave you a sample of it, just like on that ship. They gave you one area where you climb the rungs and then you shimmy across them, and you're like, oh, there's going to be more of this in the game. No, that's it. That's the only time you will do that right
The
there. You
shimmying
just did.
across stuff.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
shimmying across. Because there's some climbing on areas in each chapter.
right.
Not much, but I mean, it's there. But I mean, that said, I mean, I still think it's a solid two. I enjoyed it. It was Star Wars. I thought it was great. The sabers, the sounds. There's a lot of. I wish it could have been a one, but there was a lot of things preventing that.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not a three. I didn't think it sucked, so bad that it shouldn't be in anybody's library.
Right.
But absolutely, I give this a solid two. I mean, like 30, it's like one of those things. It's like, I don't want to pay this, but here, and
Yeah.
you'll still enjoy it.
Yeah, if it was 20, everyone would be like, "This is great," but it does seem like a pretty serious jump for that extra $10.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So of course, and this is going to be controversial, but in the comments below, certainly let us know what you thought of Vader Immortal. Did you play it on Oculus? Did you get your first experience on PlayStation VR? Are you hoping for patches? Are you happy with it? Do you hate it? Tell us everything, all your thoughts.
Yeah.
Get it out. There's a lot of pent up aggression out there, man. We want to hear all of it, and we want to hear all the love too. So if you absolutely love this thing and you want to come to its defense, put it in comments below. Also, let us know what other games you want us to play. The list is long; it keeps getting longer. For another episode of Why We Love PlayStation VR, I'm Brian Paul,
I'm Jeremy King.
and we'll see you
Next week.